Together we are but first coffee. Susie's just our host, but what matters most is we are a team. Together we are all safe here, and so are you. Among friends and mods we are safe. We talk about trauma, break down drama of life, death, happy or sad, even mad. We discuss it all here. Together we will thrive, not just survive. We will dry each other's tears, celebrate big or small wins, and chase away the fears. Together we fight cults or fight addictions. If not with experience, with love, and we don't judge. Please understand, this is a safe place to land. Please understand, you're not alone. This is a safe place to land. Together we thrive, not just survive. We will dry each other's tears, celebrate big or small wins, and chase away the fears. Because we are but first coffee, and Susie welcomes us all here. Together we are but first coffee, and Susie.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. So good to see everyone. I'm laughing at my mods. They're over in the chat. It's like, get back to work. I'm just kidding. They're probably telling me that. You get to work. So, anyway, it's good to see you. And I'm glad we're all here. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about religion. You know, we do that from time to time, not the ins and outs so much of it and the, what ifs and what were's and all that, but kind of the bad side of different religions. And I just kind of feel like, if I'm going to talk about everybody else's religion, I better be able to talk about my own. So we are today. But first, I want to check in with the chat because I am always the most excited to see who all's here. And I wish there was some way I could see who's lurking too, because I like to see everybody. So anyway, maybe one of these days that'll be a new upgrade, right? So hey, Heat, good to see you. Yeah, it looks like I'll be seeing a lot of you considering I just modded you. Jersey Jan, thank you for being here and thank you for being a mod. Mayor, always glad to see you. Yes. Oh, and Mischief, as me, put links for helpful organizations are in the community post. So, yeah, it was kind of a big deal to try to link it in here. All of the organizations that can help if you're having any kind of a crisis in faith or anything else, and you just need, you know, some assistance, but especially in like faith, or you see something going wrong in your church or in a church that you know of or something, there's links for all of that. So I try to find good links when I can. And so that's where they're at, community post. They will be posting some links to some of the channels that I'm going to mention during the live, which they're not about, Baptist, but it's just places that I have gone that I find a really, comfortable, safe place to go. And they're just very non-judgmental and just have helped me in whatever ways while I'm going through a little bit of a crisis with not so much my faith, but with religion in general. So anyway, let's see here. Once Upon a Witness. Good to see you, Vernon. Seems like it's been a while, so I'm glad to see you. Yeah. Yep, Mischief was pretending to be Susie. Now, I did leave the first one that said that we were going to be talking about the Baptists today, so I left that one, but she left the other one. Here's a pickle for anyone that wants a pickle. Eat my shorts. I love pickles, actually. So, anyway. Yeah, Mary, you think the dragon needs some snacks? I need to get on that, don't I? Mischief says Darian does not like pickles. Oh, well, what kind of dragon is that? I thought that they would eat anything. Uh, yeah, just so good to see you guys in here. I love it when you're chatting to each other. Just a quiet, peaceful dance. Always so glad to see you. Say good to see you too. Vernon says, Susie, hello, how are you? I hope your health is strong. I'm doing great, actually. I've been feeling pretty good. Had a little bit of strep and bronchitis this weekend, and so I'm getting over that, but I'm feeling pretty good. I really am. Do I think that Tommy is or was a Baptist? Oh boy. I don't know. I hadn't even thought of it. Boy, I don't know. I don't know. So what do you think? There's no lurkers? Oh my goodness, everybody's in the chat? Yeah, both have their good and bad, I think. I think that all religions do. What is funny, in my country of origin, Finland, Baptists are viewed more as a cult, and in the South where I live now, it seems to be one of the things that you should be. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny though? That's really interesting. I that's wow. It is. I'm kind of blown away by it, but I can kind of get it. I can kind of get it both ways. I can kind of see it both ways. I really can. So, mhm. Uh, yeah, I believe this. The only thing Tommy believes in is himself. Yeah, Mare, isn't that interesting? Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's crazy. To be so drastic, to be so like one end and then the other. That is it's really yeah. That is kind of appropriate. Mm, I agree, Linda. I agree. That's something. Mm. So, seems like there was something else I was going to tell you. Other than please do try to put your C's or Q's so that mischief can see those um, questions and comments and get them starred for us because I don't like to miss any. And that way she can kind of weed out the ones where you're just talking to each other so that I don't get in the middle of your conversations. Yeah, I think so, Jersey Jan. I think Elrond did think that he was like the Antichrist. Of course, he thought he was a lot of stuff. So who knows? Yeah. Oh, goodness. But that is true. I can definitely see that being on Tommy. The way that he's like so like charismatic to some people. So absolutely. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Trying to keep everything kind of done up. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and get started because we've got a lot to cover. And I actually had more and I kind of cut a bunch of it out. And so, you know me, I just research the crap out of things. And I've been researching this one for a couple of months. So, so as most of my regulars know, I do consider myself a Christian. And I also say that I have a great faith in God or Jesus, all of that. But I have really lost faith or interest even in organized religion or church, that whole thing. So, I've been kind of fighting this honestly, guys, for a few years. Like I love to go to church, but I try and I start seeing some little something that doesn't feel right and I just back out. And so anyway, um I was having the first thing that really started me working on this again was a conversation that I was having with Conversations with Christy. And she was raised very, very conservative Christian. Her relatives, the men in her family, are all um, pastors, and just she was definitely excited and on fire for the Lord, kind of thing. And I mean, she taught Sunday school. She was, I mean, her and I really were living a parallel life in a lot of ways. You've never actually been to church. Wow, Mayor. It's like, I can't imagine, and yet, at the same time, I don't know. But anyway, so long story short, I'll let her tell her story. She's not here today, but, if you wanna look at her story, and they will be putting her link in the chat at some point. Um, she had kind of a crisis of faith and everything, and she actually now identifies as pagan and as a witch. And then my friend Jimena, she also just has an absolutely beautiful point of view. They're both very, like, understanding of faith, and anyway, they between them, and then I went for, like, 2 months on this deep dive of the Baptist church, and I went into a whole lot of the origins and all this stuff that I'm not gonna do today, but anyway, all of that, and then I also had the conversation with, James Collins Cares, um, and where he was saying that he thinks that all religions are right, and I mean, therefore, that they can also all religions can have things wrong too, because anytime that it's man interpreting things, not man as in men, but man as in mankind, then, yeah, we can get it screwed up. And so, just the way that he was talking about it and everything, it was just beautiful, and it made me really, oddly, between the 3 of them, really want to examine my Christianity, and be like, "Am I a Christian?" I still very much consider myself a Christian. And but it was talking to them that has just made me more open to looking into religion, but also looking into the bad parts. So some of the bad parts is where we're gonna be at today. And, I was raised Baptist. I was raised, it was the First Baptist, Free Will Baptist, and then back to the First Baptist. And I literally, I never thought that there was anything culty that went on in any of the churches that I attended. And, I never heard of any kind of scandals, and when I finally did, it was very much presented in a way of that doesn't happen here, and that it was the fault of the perpetrator, which ultimately, yes, it is. But they didn't, like, share any blame for anything that could have, made it easier, or any of that kind of thing. So, aw. So anyway, um, that kind of bothered me a little bit. So between the better understanding, I guess, that I have of um culty behaviors, and because I've been for a year and a half now doing nothing or almost nothing but looking at cults, on this whole or in this whole SPTV community. And I was talking to Christy and talking to Jimena and talking to James, and also talking to Keela, because she's just so good to talk to. For She's with mental health matters to us. Yeah. So again, they'll be putting the links in. But between talking to all of them, it just, I really have gotten to a place of a lot of peace with it. But while I'm more at peace, I also have my eyes wide open, and I have started seeing some bad Baptists, y'all. Some bad Baptists. And I got to thinking about it, and since a lot of you have shared the issues and your experiences and everything in the religions or the churches that you have grown up in or escaped from in some situations, and I listened, or you all listened, while we've kind of talked about, and not in a flattering way, some of the religions that you all have lived with, your whole lives. And I thought, well, if you all can do it, so can I. So that's what I'm going to do today, is I'm going to expose the church that I grew up in, or not the specific church, but the church. So, it's it was an eye opener. So, because when most people think of Baptists, they think of potlucks and casseroles, and today we're gonna look behind that, beyond the hymns and the baptisms and the vacation Bible school, and we're gonna be dishing some dirt, and we're gonna spill some tea. And I just hope that everybody's ready for it. And if that is something that is going to be triggering for you all, please just come back tomorrow. We'll be talking about prisoners that are not escaped. We're going to be talking about serial killers that got released from jail. So if today doesn't work, maybe tomorrow will. So anyway, I'm going to bring some stuff up on the screen because I just think that that works out really good. So this first one is the Southern Baptist Convention, sexual abuse scandals. Okay. So, yes, I have grown up as a part of of the Southern Baptist Convention. And it doesn't even necessarily just mean the South, it just means that it's I don't know how to say, I don't know what the word would be for it. It's like a designation of which branch of the Baptists are. And I don't mean like a First Baptist or, or Free Will Baptist or whatever. I just mean kind of where their beliefs are centered in. Okay. So, what happened was in 2019, the Houston Chronicle and the San Antonio Express News released a massive investigation revealing over 700 victims of sexual abuse by more than 380 Baptist leaders over 20 years. Now, when I say Baptist leaders, that doesn't mean that they were all the pastors. They could have been youth ministers, they could have been deacons, they were just leaders in the church. So keep that in mind. Not that it makes it any better, but I'm just saying, that is the truth. Many abusers were allowed to move from church to church without consequences. We hear that a lot, don't we? Getting a little bit of hot water over here. Well, that's okay. We'll just move you over to this church over here or this org over here if you're talking about Scientology, right? So, but while that was all happening, survivors were shamed, silenced, or just ignored, completely ignored by leadership. Culty behaviors that were present, high control of informations, victims were told not to speak out. Leadership worship, especially the pastors, were defended no matter what the accusations were. Shunning and dismissal, survivors or whistleblowers were ostracized. Spiritual gaslighting, survivors told their suffering was a test from God. Now, I'm going to think about these a little bit, and if I remember, yeah, maybe I'll just say it now because I probably won't remember. But anyway, let me do this little part here. The result was in 2022, an independent investigation found that the Southern Baptist Convention Executive Committee deliberately covered up abuse, and the public database of known abusers was finally created. But that database is not just free to anybody. You can get it if you're like the leaders of the church, but you can't just I can't go get it. So is it really helping all that much? I think it could be better. But anyway, back to these culty behaviors present. In a little bit, I'm going to very briefly tell you about what led to my crisis of faith or crisis in church. And I have told it before, so a lot of you will know it, but I'm going to go ahead and tell it very briefly for the ones that don't. But I want to like just hit on these like four things so that you're thinking about it whenever you hear my story because I'll probably forget to tell you again. So, the high control of information, victims told not to speak out, that part, you would not believe the stuff that is private and secret in a church. Stuff that it doesn't matter. Now, I understand like the financials of individuals that are there, but I'm sorry, if somebody wants to know why the pastor is up at the local convenience store buying 10 pizzas, we ought to be able to tell them, "Hey, that's for this or that's for that," and not be like, "You'll have to take it up at the meeting," right? And then at the meeting, it's, "Well, it went into his, it came out of his pastor fund or whatever." No, it's just ridiculous. There was just a lot of stuff that was told just to be quiet about. I mean, a lot. And even little stupid stuff that I won't even go into. It was just dumb. So leadership worship, pastors defended no matter what. So were the deacons. We had one deacon, actually my cousin's husband, who literally didn't hardly show up for church, rarely ever showed up for any kind of a meeting, but he was a deacon and he showed up when it was time to vote on something that he wanted to get passed. But we were just supposed to bow down because he was a deacon. Still is, I guess. Shunning and dismissal. Well, I wasn't a survivor, but I was definitely a whistleblower. And as you will see, that absolutely happened. And spiritual gaslighting, told that their suffering was a test of God. This was an actual quote. It was a test of God. What I went through and how I handled it was a test of God, and I handled it poorly by stepping forward and saying, "Hey, this is going on, and I don't like it." Now, guys, just so that nobody thinks anything crazy for the rest of the live until I get to that, it wasn't a sexual thing. It was absolutely a financial thing. And so, but that's what I was told. Well, I was told a lot. We'll get to that. So, anyway, let's see here. Oops. Why is it every day I just forget how to operate? Good thing I'm not a surgeon. So, that was the Southern Baptist Convention, y'all. Now, the Independent Fundamental Baptists, the IFB, and their church abuse network. What happened? The IFB movement, not one church, but loosely connected group, has been repeatedly exposed for sexual abuse of minors, pastoral authoritarianism, covering for abusive pastors, and cult like purity culture and control of women. It has, what I was reading, it, it is like almost Amish on some of that stuff. Like it's crazy. Not all, of course. So if you are somebody that goes to an IFB church, and I'm not putting them down. I'm just saying that a lot of these, especially these that have been under scrutiny, were very, very, really bad. So anyway, churches led by figures like Jack Hiles, I don't know how you do that. Is it Swape or Swap? And Bob Gray Sr. became notorious for abuse. Key case. Of course, it's him. This Jack guy, pastor of the First Baptist Church of Hammond, Indiana, one of the largest IFB churches, was convicted in 2013 for transporting a 16-year-old girl against state lines for sex. And while he was doing that, he was framing it as spiritual counseling. Yeah, thank God I don't know of any of that happening where I've been, but see, happens in the Baptist church too. Anyway, culty or behavior present. Pastors treated as unquestionable authority figures. That's absolutely been in every Baptist church I've been in. Strict ginger role or ginger. I always say ginger instead of gender. Strict gender roles, dress codes, and submissive doctrine. That's been pretty big too. Are we talking about tomorrow's show? I see everybody talking about cereal. Oh, gosh, now I'm blowing my nose out at y'all after yesterday after I swallowed a fly. Oh, you're going to stop coming here just because I'm gross. Isolation from outsiders, worldly influence equals sin, and shaming and excommunication of dissenters. Well, that's what happened to me. So there is a documentary that's called Let Us Pray, and it's pray as in like you're praying on something, not praying like you're praying over something. So Let Us Pray, a ministry of scandals, and it's on the BBC. And I've actually watched it, and it's excellent. So okay, now we have the Faith Baptist Church with Lester Roloff Ministries. Okay, what happened? What happened? Lester Roloff, a preacher from Texas, ran homes for troubled youth starting in the 1950s. These homes included the Rebecca Home for Girls, and they were run with no licensed professionals, no oversight, and abuse allegations spanning decades. Reported abuses: physical beatings, food deprivation, forced labor, solitary confinement, prayer used as punishment, and girls forbidden to speak unless spoken to. Hmm. Wow. Culty behavior present, extreme control under guise of Bible-based reform. Cut off from family, school, or legal protection. God's law is above man's law rhetoric. In 2022, Texas filed a suit against one of its successor homes. Wow. Sounds like they needed to. Then we have this one hit home, y'all. Victory Christian Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Billy Joe Dowdy is the pastor, or was. He's passed away now. The reason that this hit so close to home was because I've been there, and I know people that go there, and I know of this incident that happened, and it just rocked this state really because this guy, he didn't do it, but the pastor didn't do it, but it was just such a black eye for the entire thing, and it's kind of one of the smaller, not like the Texas, super churches or mega churches or whatever, but for Oklahoma, it's kind of one of our mega churches. So anyway, what happened? In 2011, 5 staff members were arrested for failing to report child rape at the church-run school. The abuse victim was a 13-year-old and she was pregnant. And she was shamed and told to pray instead of being protected. The culty behavior present, fear of bringing shame to the church, victim blaming, enclosed culture where God will take care of it replaces justice. Yeah, it was a big, big deal, y'all. And yes, Vernon. Yeah, I will get to that in in full, but yeah, they do. Um, so this church, this Billy Joe Dougherty, he was very well known in the community, and I'm in the community, I mean, as in Tulsa, which is a pretty good sized city, but also everywhere else. He was just really well known, well liked, and everything. But the fact that all this went down was at this church was just, I mean, it's, as you can tell, I'm a little flustered over it. It still to this day kind of feels like a slap in the face because we just know a lot of people that went there. His wife did a lot of, she would put on these shows where she talked about her family and her kids and, all these women's day out kind of deals. And I would go to those with different members, my mom and different members of the church. And we would just, oh, we just like, if we lived closer, we'd go to that church. It's just amazing. I wanted my kids to go there, but I didn't want to have to drive the hour one way every Sunday. And so, I was used to being able to drive like 4 minutes. So, anyway, it was just strange. Things kind of went downhill when he passed away suddenly. His son just was just quote unquote called to minister, didn't have any training, didn't anything, and so his son just took over this huge massive church and they just kept it, kind of in the family. And then all of this happened and like I know somebody that worked there and it was awful. So, and it would be awful no matter where it's at, but I'm just saying that this one in particular, it just really struck close to home for me. So, and this poor girl, yeah, they didn't tell about it for a while, and yeah, they told her that, God'll take care of it, don't go to the authorities, uh, all the things that you just don't do. Don't do it. So this one just shows kind of a reported Baptist church scandals by states and the Southern Baptist ones, and of course, it's not all of them, but these are the most. They go down drastically after this, and if you notice, it is mostly the southern states that seem to have a lot of problems going on. Texas has a big lead, though, a very big lead. And then Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Mississippi, Louisiana, Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. And I just didn't even want Oklahoma to be on that map at all, but there it is. So, yeah. No, she was not raised Baptist. She was in like a Pentecostal. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and grab some others. I kind of put these into things that where they were kind of the same, kind of had to do with each other. So it'll just take me just a minute to grab these. Okay. Yeah, these are some interesting ones. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Duh. So let me go. I'll just go ahead and put these all on here in the right order real quick. It'll just take a second. Yeah. Here we go. I found my mouse the other day, but do you think that I have hooked it up? Nope. I found my keyboard and my mouse. Mm, let's see. I'm almost done. I've almost got them all loaded. I would be done if I would hit the right buttons. Okay, I got that. I got all of those. Here we go. This one and one more. Okay, so we've got that now. And this one is part one, survivor quotes from Baptist church scandals. Number one says, I was told reporting my rape would ruin the Lord's work. Survivor from a Southern Baptist church or convention, church via Houston Chronicle investigation. They said my abuse was God's way of humbling me. Former teen girl in the IFB group home, Rebecca's Home for Girls. The pastor molested me and then told my parents I was lying and needed more prayer. From an IFB affiliate church in North Carolina. We were taught not to question God's man, which would be the pastor, even if he did something wrong. Former member of the First Baptist Church of Hammond under Jack Hyles. They controlled how we dressed, how we dated, what we read. It was like Christian Scientology. Wow. Ex member of a small independent Baptist congregation in Missouri. Yeah. I had to forgive my abuser to prove I was saved. How sick is that one? I had to forgive my abuser to prove that I was saved. Victim of sexual child abuse in a Southern Baptist youth group. You couldn't leave the church without being treated like you were possessed by demons. Former IFB member who was excommunicated for rebellion after asking questions. That is, ugh. Okay. Now we're going to add this one. Okay, part two. Are scandals more common in mega churches or small congregations? And it says both, but for different reasons. Mega churches have the risk factor of celebrity pastors, zero accountability, charismatic manipulation, media image obsession. And small churches have isolation, insular communities, lack of oversight, and God's man authoritarianism. And I can tell you that is absolutely true. I've been in not necessarily a mega church, but I've been to them, and it absolutely is like that the pastor is a celebrity, and yet they're actually the ones that are running the show. They've got that media image obsession and the whole bit, right? But in those small churches, you better believe that preacher, he is God's man. He is God's voice to that, you know. Ugh, it's crazy. Megachurch scandals tend to make headlines because of their scale and fame, like Hillsong, SBC's big names. But small churches, especially in IFB or rural Baptist settings, which is where I went, it was a Southern Baptist, but it was a rural Baptist setting. They can be more cult-like and more dangerous because there's no HR department, no elders, and no denominational oversight. No, there's really not. Whatever preacher you hire, he actually could have come from a completely different denomination. And at some point, he's going to be teaching, he doesn't have something set that he's supposed to teach. He teaches what comes to him, what he's called to teach. And so he's going to teach what he wants. And if he comes from a very strict background, you just never know what you're going to get. Victims are often completely cut off from external support. Absolutely. And like in my case, I was cut off from internal support when I needed it the most. Again, not like these people that we're talking about, but mine just shows a different side of the culty nature of some churches. So abuse is spiritualized, framed as discipline from God. The most extreme cult-like control is often found in small, independent Baptist churches. Absolutely. So then part 3 is, how do Baptist scandals compare with other Christian churches? Southern Baptist and IFB churches, flat structure equals easier to cover up abuse, no central power to appeal to. High autonomy allows each pastor to operate like a king. Absolutely. Legal loophole. Southern Baptist Church says churches are anonymous. Anonymous? I can't say the word. I'm sorry. So leadership claimed no responsibility for predator pastors hopping between churches. Absolutely. Yeah. So there's a little graph or not a graph, a little chart in the middle that says comparison with other traditions. Catholic Church, it's a global sexual abuse crisis, massive cover up, centralized concealment with cult like behavior of hierarchy, enabled long term cover ups. Jehovah Witnesses have judicial committees, no reporting to police, victim shaming, which excommunication, shunning, mind control. The Mormon Church has abuse by leaders, youth interviews, financial secrecy, extreme purity control, high demand lifestyle, suppression of dissent, Pentecostal or charismatic. Boy, that one just keeps getting smaller as I go down, I think. Out comes the magnifying glass, y'all. Spiritual abuse tied to prophetic authority, financial scams, leader worship, public shaming, emotional coercion, and mainline Protestant, as in like the Methodist, is some abuse cases, often with better transparency. So they're far less culty, more structure and democratic input. So that's good. Baptist scandals are less centralized than Catholic ones, but more easily hidden. Wow. So, yeah, I can't see the rest of that part in there. So I'm going to just go to the next one. Okay. So the South is the most, okay. So why does the South seem to have so many scandals? And that is number one, because the South is the most religious region in the USA. The South is often called the Bible Belt, home to the highest concentration of conservative Protestant Christians, including Baptist, Pentecostal, and evangelical denominations. Over 75% of people in Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee identify as highly religious. Church attendance and social involvement in church life is also highest in these states. And here's my sources. Power is often concentrated in the hands of pastors. Many Southern churches, especially independent fundamental Baptist IFB and non denominational megachurches, operate without meaningful oversight or accountability. Pastors may act as both spiritual and administrative heads with no board checks, no transparency, and no denomination oversights, particularly in IFB or breakaway Southern Baptist churches. And there's the sources on those. Cultural silence and shame-based idea or theology. Southern religious culture often emphasizes don't question authority, especially male pastors or elders. Speaking out is discouraged and seen as rebellion or divisiveness. Victims of abuse or whistleblowers are often gaslit or shunned by the community. And there's the source of those. So, yeah. Some of these are kind of hard to go over again. Okay, number 4, equals social capital. In many southern towns or church, your church defines your reputation. Losing your place in church can mean losing friends, business clients, babysitters, and political opportunities. As a result, families and leaders may cover up scandals to protect the ministry or keep unity. That's absolutely what I was faced with here. And it's still that way. Not just me. It happened to other people and it's still happening. So, and not just in the church I went to. It's just it's here. It's really such a southern thing, I think. Lack of outside scrutiny. In rural southern areas, churches can operate without media oversight. Very true. And local law enforcement may even attend the same church. Also true. This blurs the lines of accountability. Many pastors have been able to reoffend by simply moving to another rural church in the same region. And there's the sources for those. Hold on. Are you in there? Sorry. Sorry, I'm trying to find my husband. I thought I hit the right button, but I didn't. So, okay. Here we go. Theology of purity and submission. Southern evangelical culture often alleviates male authority and purity culture, teaching that women must submit and children must obey without question. This creates ideal conditions for abuse and secrecy. Victims often blame themselves or are told that they caused the abuse by not being godly enough. Absolutely. I don't know if he's in here, but so example states with repeated church scandals. Texas, the most notable scandal, SBC sex abuse report, Daystar Church, and also embezzlement. Alabama, Jack Schnapp, network abuse, small town IFB cover ups. Georgia, FBC, Atlanta, numerous IBF purity culture incidents. Arkansas, Duggar family, and the IBLP ties. Tennessee, Bellevue Baptist, child sex abuse concealment. In Florida, megachurch sex abuse and financial scandals. It is crazy. It makes me kind of sad. It really does. It just it's like, oh, I was, this was not my church, but okay, so I already did this one. I somehow got it in there twice. Okay, so we do have this one here. A special warning signs to some Baptist churches. Touch not God's anointed is used to silence valid concerns. The world is evil, only we are right, isolates members from outside help. God told me to, used to justify, manipulate, or abusive behavior. Dress codes for women only, obsessive control over appearance linked to purity culture. Mandatory forgiveness forces survivors to reconcile with abusers to prove faith. I think that's the one that just pisses me off the worst. So, I don't know. Let's see here. Okay, there should be two more groups, but I think they're smaller, I think. Yeah. This one just has 4. So, is it this one? Let's see. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and add these, and then there's one more little group. So, I like to just put these up because that way you can see the sources, and it just sometimes just seeing the words makes it so much better, I think, if you like that's not the one I wanted. Sorry. Ideo Okay, hold on. We got ideology. Oh, here. There we go. Okay. I guess. So, what is Free Will Baptist Church? Because I went to a Free Will Baptist Church whenever I was a kid. So, the core identities it stems from General Baptist traditions, emphasizing free will and general atonement. Organized nationally under the National Association of Free Will Baptist Church, founded in 1935. They believe in Armenian theology that people have free will to accept or reject salvation, unlike the Calvinist leanings of Southern Baptist and many of the IFB churches. So they don't believe in once saved always saved. They believe that you can screw up and you're in trouble again. So, which was one of the things that I always had such a hard time with First Baptist Church was that they believe in, once saved, always saved. And I thought, well, what if somebody got saved when they were a teenager and then they grew up and became a serial killer or a child molester or something and they just they're okay because they wanted to be okay when they were a kid? I don't think so, but you'd be shocked. Believe me, I got in a lot of trouble for having a lot of questions. So where do they fit in? They are not part of the Southern Baptist Convention. They're not IVB, though some individual churches can lean towards the IVB in style, especially in rural or southern areas. Typically not cult like, but some Free Will Baptist churches have displayed fundamentalist traits, especially regarding modesty rules, purity culture, and and legalism. How did I not know what that word was? Anyway, red flags for the Free Will Baptist is automatically safe. Some Free Will Baptist churches are nourishing and healthy. Others may mirror IFB style control, especially in isolated or with an unaccountable leadership. Notable doctrine differences. Conditional security. They believe a safe person can fall away through persistent sin. Foot washing as a church ordinance in many First Baptist churches. Local autonomy with national cooperation, similar to Southwest Southern Baptist Convention in that churches are independently governed. So yeah, they they're really a lot like the First Baptist or the other Baptist, except for they are a little more, stringent on the gender roles and purity, but they do have that difference of believing that you can fall away from God. So then they have this one. Okay. I'm gonna shut well, wait. Okay. Free Will Baptist versus Southern Baptist and International um, Baptist. Anyway, salvation. Free will can reject salvation. Southern Baptist, once saved, always saved. The IFB is the same. Bible version often prefers the King James Version, but not always the King James Version only. Southern Baptist, it kind of varies. They use the King James Version, the version, the ESV, and the NIV. IFB is strictly King James Version. Structure has national convention and associations for the Free Will Baptist. The Southern Baptists have a cooperative convention. The IFB are fully independent. There's no structure. View of women. Women cannot be pastors in the Free Will Baptist, but may serve in roles like music director, children's church, that kind of thing. Southern Baptist, um, no female pastors. They will let you be like Sunday school teacher, but you can't be the youth minister. You can't be the music minister. You can't be any of that. So the IV or IFB is women must submit, and it's stricter. Worship style. The Free Will Baptist is traditional but less militant. Are you doing the F's again, Mischief? Conservative to modern, depending on the church. And the IFB is often loud, emotional, and fear driven. So that's a lot of where you get a lot of the hellfire and damnation, that's slamming, and then the Lord, that whole thing. Yeah, which is terrifying to me. So, view of outsiders, the Free Will Baptists will associate with other evangelicals. The Southern Baptists will cooperate with some evangelicals, and the IFB rarely fellowship with anyone outside of the IFB. Theology, Armenian salvation can be lost. Southern Baptist is Calvinist, leaning to eternal security. Well, I guess Mark wasn't here because he's pulling in now. And then the IFB is the same as the Southern Baptist, but harsher. They really are. They're very, the preachers that you see in the movies and stuff where they are like, preaching and slamming their hand on the pulpit and all that. That's the IFB. The Southern Baptist would be like the more kind of laid back, but you got to follow the rules. And there's a lot of them. Cultural conservatism, modest conservative dress for the Free Will Baptist, alcohol abstinence. So the Southern Baptists, they do that too, but they have culturally, they're very conservative. They are very conservative politically too. And even though they're not supposed to tell you, trust me, they do. And trust me, you know that you are the ruin of the entire world if you are not just as conservative as their most conservative pew sitter. So anyway, the IFB is even more controlling about all of that and more. Absolutely. So, yeah. Can y'all see why I wasn't doing so good there? Not IVF, the Southern Baptist. I am just not a rule follower. So, in this one, okay, that one we already did. Sorry. I don't know how I got that in there twice. Okay, and we got one more little group. I'm going to put that back on the screen. Okay. Desktop. Yeah. And this one is my story, y'all. Okay. So I'm going to tell kind of briefly my story because I think that it really does fit into this. And again, I've told it before, so I'm going to do a very shortened version of it. But I know that there are some people here that they have no idea what's her story. What's her story? What is it with her in churches, right? So I'm going to give you the short version. Okay. So I actually wrote this. I wrote what I'm going to read to you into Chat GPT to see what they would say. Okay. Because I didn't have anybody that I could go to, like another pastor, and then how do I know if I trust them? Because I don't trust anybody, right? So I wrote this into it, and then I'll tell you what it said to me. I said, "I quickly want to tell my story and have it analyzed to see where it falls in this topic." Because I had put in, all my information and had it put into these cards that I was doing, okay? I was a long-term member of my rural First Baptist church. My entire family, multi-generational, went there. I was the financial secretary, the pastor's secretary, a Sunday school teacher, and also on multiple committees. My husband also taught Sunday school and was the men's leader. So he actually did a lot of they called it missions, where the men would go play, I don't know, they'd go play golf. He didn't play golf, but that some churches that's what they do, or they would go play softball, or they would go bowling, or that kind of thing. But they would also have meetings at our house and have Bible study. They actually did the Bible study stuff more than they yeah, see these clip notes. More than they did the, um, going and playing stuff. They actually did Bible study, but I always teased him and was like, "Oh, yeah, you're going to the movie. Oh, yeah, you're gonna go bowling." But really, they did a lot of those things, and what my job was on those nights was to fix all the snacks and have it all set out there and everything prepared and then disappear. Anyway, so I reported some financial concerns about the pastor's spending of church funds to the deacons. In response, I was told it's easier, that's supposed to say hire, not hire, a secretary than a pastor. I told them, well, the pastor is actively looking to change churches. So you're going to have to hire a pastor regardless. Regardless, they stuck to it. So I ended up quitting all of my jobs and my committees because everything was interwoven with the pastor's spending or his wife. By the way, she found out that I reported stuff and loudly called me a bitch in my office in front of my husband. It was actually right before a big um, political person's son was getting married. So the church was full of people, and a lot of people heard her scream at me and call me a bitch. But she told everybody it was me calling her one, and everybody believed it because she was the pastor's wife, right? I mean, and everybody knows I have a potty mouth, but they didn't know that that was what she prayed about constantly, was her potty mouth. Anyway, but yeah, she told everybody that I called her that, but it was not true. I was told to still attend church, but come in after it started and sit in the back, and to leave before it ended so that I could avoid the pastor or his wife. I declined. I wrote a letter of resignation from my jobs and told exactly why I was leaving, which my husband read aloud at the next business meeting. I was pretty much shunned by the members, including some family, for years. Still, some of them, and it's been about 20 years now. The pastor did leave just a few months later, like 3, I think. Before I left, the lead deacon said to me, hold on, I can't see it. I know what it says, but I want to make sure I get it right. Yeah, he said that I was being unreasonable and suppressive. Now, at this point, I didn't know anything about or very much about Scientologists, so it just didn't mean anything to me that he called me suppressive other than just normal stuff. But a few years later, that ended up like a slap in the face, y'all. So, anyway, a quick breakdown of where your story falls on the healthy versus culty church scale. What you did, I reported financial misconduct. The church's response was, or a healthy church response would be, and investigate it. Thank you. And to protect me. Nope. What I got instead is it's easier to fire the secretary. Warned of pastor's plans to leave. What would have been good was a strategic transition plan. No. What I got was dismissed and gaslit. What I did was I stood up to verbal abuse. the abuser was the pastor's wife. And she should have been corrected. That wasn't what happened. I was falsely accused and punished. Resigned respectfully and explained why. Respected boundaries and honored your service was what should have happened. Instead, I was shunned by members and even family. 6:20. Um, no. Yes. So, what I did was offer transparency and closure. What should have happened was leadership acknowledgement and reform, but what happened was that I was told that I was unreasonable and suppressive. So, that goes back to some of those things that that I told you earlier that went into my story a little bit. Now, we have this one. A culty church behavior checklist from your story. Authoritarian leadership. It's easier to fire the secretary than the pastor. This is textbook power protection. The pastor was shielded and you were expendable. Absolutely. I felt like garbage that just didn't have a place. Punishment for dissent. You reported mismanagement, and instead of accountability, you were punished emotionally and socially. Spiritualized avoidance. Being told to sneak in and out of church is a form of exile dressed as avoiding conflict. That's not reconciliation, that's spiritual quarantine. Emotional abuse and gaslighting. You were called a liar, publicly defamed, and emotionally ambushed while being told that that you were the unreasonable one. That's true. Shunning. Even after you quietly and respectfully exited, you were ostracized, including by your own family. This is a form of relational control. Keep people scared to associate with the rebel. And that one hit when I read this one, it really hit because I didn't really even realize that they too were being scared, to associate with me. So they too, it's kind of like how we say that the abuser can also be abused. So, tied leadership and finances. You couldn't separate your service from the pastor's influence because everything was interwoven, a warning sign of consolidated power. There's no oversight, no elder board, no external review, no financial transparency, classic in small Baptist churches where the pastor answers to no one. Yeah, we had deacons, or they had deacons, still do, but they didn't really do anything. All they did was they voted on if we could spend money like to build a new sanctuary or something like that. Not on whether a pastor was in trouble or whatever, other than to accept my resignation. So, and then this is the last one, emotional toll. Your story isn't just about toxic workplace. It's a spiritual trauma. You gave years of faithful service, you built trust, worked with integrity, tried to protect the church, and they punished you for it. That's not how healthy churches treat whistleblowers. That's how institutions protect idols. How it lines up. Leadership style, authoritarian. Financial accountability, non existent. Power dynamic, pastor centered. Community response, culty shunning behavior. Emotional health, neglected and manipulated. Transparency, suppressed. Healing opportunity, denied. Yeah, denied. So, that's my little story, and how that even though I don't want to admit it, accept it, whatever the story may be, even my little church can be very culty. And the thing is that it was a lot, okay? And like the other churches that we've been covering, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It truly is. There's so much more. And I don't do these expose type things to try to scare anybody away from going to church or away from God or faith. That's not why. That's not why I do it. I want them to understand that even in church, even in churches that are very mainstream churches, there still can be abuse, and it still needs to be stopped. And I remember James Collins saying that he doesn't identify as a Christian because he believes that all religions are right. And I found that really profound. And again, I believe in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't believe that any one religion has to be completely right and everybody else is wrong. I don't believe that. What about people that have had absolutely no ability? What about people in, like, Africa that still live very tribally and have not had the ability to, go to a Baptist church or a Mormon church or, a Jehovah Witness or whatever. So are they just just damned to hell because they've never had a chance? I don't believe that. So I believe on some level that James is right. And that's one of those things I'm gonna probably have to talk to God about whenever I get there, hopefully. I believe I'm going, y'all. I believe I'm going there. So, today y'all heard about some of the worst that's in the Baptist church, but like the cults, not all the people in there are bad. Not all the people in there are good. They're just there's always gonna be people that are not acting in accordance with what they know is right and what's good and what God would want. But that's not the whole church. So I'm trying to say this stuff without looking like I'm trying to scare you away. And just so the trolls have to quote me right, hopefully, I do still consider myself a Christian. And I do not consider myself an ex-cult member, so I don't wanna hear about, "Oh, now she's an ex-cult member," right? But, I do believe that all churches, including, obviously, the Baptist church, can have very culty behaviors, and it breaks my heart. And I believe that the way that I was treated by my church was very culty and wrong. And I knew it all along, but it's honestly like in the last couple of months that I finally was like, "You didn't do anything wrong." Because even though I knew what I did wasn't wrong, I kept telling myself, "Well, you could have handled it better." But I don't know how. I went through the power, whatever it is, I went the way I was supposed to. It was very controlling and very demeaning, and, it is still a very political church. It's more political now than whenever I was there, because I still know a lot of people that go there. So, but it is getting better. A lot of the old white male dominance is better because a lot of those old guys, rest in peace, I miss a lot of them very much, that they are dying off and some of the younger ones are coming in and they're changing things, and a lot of women are stepping up. I will never go back to that church. I can't forget the shunning by people that have known me my entire life. As for me, right now, I identify as Methodist, and when I do go to church, it feels more structured. It feels less personal. I just, I don't know, maybe it's just because I go in a town across from us that I didn't grow up with everybody. So, but they don't frown if I have an adult beverage now and then or dance my ass off, right? Christian definitely, or the Baptist church definitely frowned on that. And one good thing is I go so infrequently that they still think I'm a visitor. And so every time we go, I get a mug that says, "Welcome to the Methodist Church, y'all." So we got a bunch of them. So I do want to thank the following channels for giving me a safe harbor while I work my way through my faith healing, which is I can't talk. Conversations with Christy, The Magic of Healing with Jimena, Mental Health Matters to Us, which is Keela's channel, and James Collins Cares. They've been very kind, unjudgy, and they've helped me heal. And I think that if you're going through, yeah, free mugs, yay. If you're going through anything like that, they could really help you too. Um, I don't know if they put the links in the chat. If not, I will link it in the community page too. But feel free to go check them out. I do want to offer a little trigger warning for some of you because Christy and Jimena both do identify as witches, but they both have just an absolute beautiful faith, and their belief system is just beautiful, and it's not at all um, alarming to me. Um, you know, anyway, but y'all, I mean, yeah, a lot of people might call me a bitch, right? But I still see myself as a Christian and maybe a little side of witch, but there are Christian witches, right? Those actually do exist, y'all. And someday we'll do a live about that. So right now I'm going to go check with the starred comments. We seem to have a lot. I'm going to try to get through them fairly fast. But I do want to see what you guys have said. Okay, I've already answered that one. Whoops. And that one. That'll make it go fast. And that one. Okay, here we go. Teresa G. Eller. Lurker here. I live in the South too. I'm a Methodist, and the people in my county think us Methodists are devil worshippers. Oh, man. See, that is so ridiculous. I'm a Methodist too. My husband's been a Methodist, I think, all of his life. So, and it's good to see you. I hope you'll come back and join the chat. It's always good to see lurkers come out and join. Okay, let's see here. Yes, say, I think any organization can become culty. I do too. I really do. Glorfindale West, knowledge is power. It's great that you are having this conversation. I hope so. I really do. And I wanted to see or show that I really can. If I can dish it out, I got to be able to take it too, right? So, yeah. Jersey Jan, I grew up conservative Jewish. I grew up feeling my temple was forcing religion on us, left a bad taste in my mouth, so to speak. Wow. I really don't know a lot about, I mean, I know some, but I am going to look into some with Jewish faith, and you'd be a great person to have on and talk about it. I have not read the Bible cover to cover, but a lot, and I have read some world religion literature. I've read it cover to cover a few times, and I don't think that makes me any more, Christian or whatever than anybody else. I have read it. Um, but I am a reader. I will read anything. When I'm in the bathroom, I'll read the back of the tampon box just to have something to read. I'm not even kidding. Like, I just have to have something to read. And if I forget to take something with me, because I mean, I grew up, we didn't have phones to take, and I think it's kind of ick to take my phone in there. So I don't really do that anyway. But yeah. Uh, is there any organized religion that doesn't have accusations of SA? I don't know. Not that I know of, but I will look it up. I'm going to write it down. Any religion. That's a good one, and I will get back to you on that. And I'll get back to all of you on that. That's a great question, Mayor. Really. What I believe is not always easy to express in a chat, but I do think we are learning to love. Yeah. And I don't think abuse is loving. I think you said that perfectly. I really do. I think it's great. Thank you, Mayor. To your point, I think churches tend to have SA and cover-ups to keep their power. Well, the thing is that the church, I don't care what they say, that church is not God. That church is not Jesus. That church is a building. And in that building are people. And people mess up. People are good, people are bad, people are somewhere in between. And that's how it happens. is because that church is not God. Aside from the Hasidic, I've never heard of any scandals in the Jewish temple, but what do I know? I'll look into it because now I am really wanting to know. Question: do Baptists teach that if you don't accept Christ, you will go to an eternal hell? The Southern Baptists do. The Free Will Baptists, okay, the Southern Baptists, yeah, you have to, okay, all of them, all the Baptists, you have to accept Christ, okay? Um, the Free Will Baptists believe that you can fall out of grace by being a bad person and sinning and all this stuff. I mean, not just one little sin, but if you know, the Southern Baptists believe that once you accept Christ into your heart, that you are always saved. And so, yeah, they basically do. Hey, thank you, Say, for being a new member. That is awesome. Vernon says, "Were your parents very religious?" Yeah. Um, Especially my mom. My dad is quieter about it. He's very deep in his faith. He's kind of like me. He doesn't go to church, but he's very deep in his faith in God. Uh, my mom, well, my both of my parents were raised in church, but my mom especially, she raised us in church. But my dad, he went to church, but not like a every time the doors were open, his butt was warm in the pew kind of thing. So yeah, but yeah, they were both very religious. My dad, what's funny is that one of his best friends was actually the preacher at the church I'm talking about, not the preacher that I had trouble with, but one that came in after that one left. And he's kind of low key famous around this area or in the South. And he retired from his where he would travel, evangelical type work. And he came back to his first church, right? And I thought, boy, dad'll be in that church then. He didn't go back. I mean, it was the church that hurt me. He didn't go back, even though it was a whole different pastor. Yeah. I believe this too, Mayor. I wonder how many pastors choose the job to have access. We were talking about that with some of my guests before, where the retired Army general or whatever was suddenly teaching at a Christian school. He didn't need the money. He could have let somebody that needed the money have that job, but he was there and he was a gym teacher or, PE teacher. And then he ended up molesting girls. So I think, I don't know that that's prevalent, but I bet it happens. I can't imagine that it doesn't. Yeah, many I would guess, just like they gravitate to teaching. See, me and Mayor and Mischief are all on the same page. Uh, yeah, it seems like a logical choice to hide. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mischief says, with all the coverage online of SA cover ups and no punishment, I'm surprised that predators aren't beating down Scientology's door. I know, right? I know. I am just amazed. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they don't want to have to put up with the crap that goes along with it. Uh, says there's a good book by Diane Landberg on the topic understanding authority and abuse in church. If anyone is interested in more, yeah, that's cool. I will definitely look into that. Yes, small town pastors can have a lot of political influence too. They also run for office. Yeah, as if that's not like, every time they stand at the pulpit, they may not be saying, "I want your vote," but they're telling you, "I want your vote." Yeah, Redeeming Power: Understanding Authority and Abuse in the Church by Diane Landberg. Okay. Yeah, Diane Landberg. I'm gonna run. I have to have my list. Okay, I got that one. Yes, Ben, your challenges prepare you for your purpose. That's brilliant. Glenda Cox. And how about the fact that the Southern church system continues to support racial inequity? You are true. You are correct. And it infuriates me. That's just another thing that it's the fact that there are still in the South black Baptist churches. There's one right down the road from my house. It's not used anymore. They've all moved off for one reason or another. Sure. Yeah. But yeah, there's the fact that there's that is just so telling. And we go to Savannah, and behind the Hilton where we stay, there's a big first um I think it says First Black Baptist Church of Savannah, I think is the name. But anyway, it's black people, and I'm like, I want to go there because I've met a lot of the people, and my husband talks to the pastor all the time, and we're like, Could we go?" And the pastor's like, "Yeah, you can go." And so I really want to, and I did notice I saw a couple of white people went in there, but man, all the hats and everything. I know that that's not why I should want to go to a church, but I want to go because I just want to wear a hat or a fascinator or something like my aunt Betty. I just want to be Aunt Betty for a Sunday. Thank you, Mischief. She put Say's book recommendation in there. I'm going to go ahead and leave that there for a minute. Let's see here. Calvinism run amok is also really problem. Yes, it can be. It can be very problematic. You are true, Bacon. Bacon bits. Whoops. Ugh. Yeah. As a therapist, we actually have a huge local Baptist church that 100% supports gay rights. That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. It doesn't happen enough, but it does. It is starting to happen. The Methodist church that we do kind of sort of attend sometimes, um, their pastor is a woman. And, so notice I say there because we don't attend enough to be like members. I mean, eventually I figure we'll join, and we've been talking about going back because I'm feeling better about the whole church thing in the last couple months. But anyway, um, so this pastor, she's a woman, and her son is gay, and they're very accepting of that. And it just makes me now the church wasn't, um, they split. It's another one of those a lot of Methodist churches have split recently, and this was one of them that did split, and sadly, it had to do with the whole, gay acceptance or not acceptance thing. But I was so excited that the pastor was able to stay and that the vast majority of the members stayed. There was just some that left, and I don't even know where they went, probably over to the next town to that one. So, I don't know because they don't have 2 in that town. So, Mayor says, "Jersey, I used to work with a member of a congregation. He lived his faith and was actually an ordained minister. He never pushed his faith on others." You're not gonna bring anybody to the Lord if you live your life in such a way that nobody wants to be around you. Because if they don't wanna be around you, they're not gonna wanna be around God either. And if and I say it all the time that more Christians are dangerously close to chasing people away from God than they are pulling them to God. And that is just sad. And so, yeah, I'll say I'm a Christian because it just I want people to understand that I'm coming towards this as a Christian. But not because I think I'm better than you, because I know I'm not. I absolutely know I'm not. I know that I screw up daily, and not one of those, "I mess up daily and it's fine because I'm a Christian and God forgives me." That's not what I mean. I mean, I screw up daily. So, I'm no better than you. If I'm over here screwing up, I'm no better than you. So, I was raised in a Pentecostal congregation in the Bible Belt. I remember Daddy always saying, "Those Baptists are all going to hell." Yeah, that's funny. That is funny. They all do it though. I swear, all the different churches, they think that they're the only one that's right. That's why when James said that, it just I don't know, it was so freeing to me. Just that, you know, ugh. Aw, thanks, Puke. I hate that you were subjected to that. Just awful. Aw, thank you, Misha. Misha. I always say Misha, and I think it's Misha, but you know, Nana of two, super late. Always great shows. Thank you. Darcy's says in the Bible says if you denounce God or Jesus, you can lose your salvation. I know. That's where I have a problem because I believe that. Just a quiet, peaceful dance. My experience with religion has always been extremely upsetting. I don't trust people that can say they are speaking for God to be told my child wouldn't have a soul. Yeah, I know. I absolutely know. I have a problem with that too. I think that a preacher, pastor, reverend, whatever they're called, should be more of like a teacher. I think that, it's okay to teach the scriptures, but I just, my alarm bells go off big time if they start saying that that they are in communication with God, that they are God's voice here on earth, all that I'm like, gone. Bye. See ya. Absolutely, Ben. Gaslighting is so common. Misha. It was a different world back then. So much residue still lingers in unexpected places. It is just, I tell you. Ben says, yes, sadly, it's common for unhealed abuse to take on behaviors. Yeah. If they don't sort through their abuse. Absolutely. Absolutely. The abuser or the abused becomes the abuser. Yeah, maybe not getting into a church was a good thing considering what could happen. And like I said, I don't wanna scare anybody away, that's not my point at all. I would love for everybody to have their faith, to have a church family that can be amazing. It honestly can. But just know that if stuff starts looking, a little sus, get the heck out of there. Get away from it, and I've posted some, information on places that you can turn, that places that you can go to for help, that you can report things so that you're not reporting it to the very people that are gonna cover it up. This is a whole outside deal so that you can report it to somewhere safe. Misha, I'm old as dirt. Every time I think I've heard it all, I find out there's more. Me too. One of the things about religious trauma, it is abuse, but coming from a church, not possible, right? Who wants to be the sinner, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. Say, but need to be picky where one gets involved. Absolutely. The more you know, I think it is great that you shine a light on all this, Susie. Well, thank you. And I really don't want to just show the bad parts, but we hear about the good parts. Sometimes we have to have somebody that does shine the light on the bad parts. Yeah. Oh, Susie, don't worry. Some churches do a great job keeping unworthy people out. Yeah. Do y'all remember? I'm sure you've seen it too, where there's like Jesus is sitting on on the steps of the church, and this beggar is out there, and it's like, don't worry, they won't let me in either, because like they're so judgmental, they won't even let Jesus in there. They don't even know he's Jesus, y'all. They don't even know. Mm. So much has been tainted and manipulated for others' agenda. Absolutely. Personally, I have struggled in some ways due to recent oncoming memories, but thankfully I have a one on one experience and I'm holding on tightly. Absolutely. That's what I say all the time. I still have a huge faith in God. I still believe. And I know, I absolutely know that some of it is crazy sounding, but I still believe it. So if I'm wrong, I'm not hurting anybody. But if I'm right, groups can be led by narcissists. A religion doesn't change that. Absolutely, Ben. Absolutely. There are a couple of YouTube channels that are led by horrible people. So why not a church? Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're so right. There's another name I don't recognize. Cliff Ann Ferguson. I do recognize it, but I don't know from where. I believe all religions are man made. They have cult tendencies. The rules of every church are man made. You you can talk directly to the creator. There is no reason for a middleman, in my opinion. I agree completely. That's perfectly said in my book. But I'm sure that some people would disagree with me. Misha says we only know what we know and we do what we can where when we can. You are doing right now, Susie. You are on your path forward. Well, thank you. Linda, I was a child prodigy. By the age of 5, I was taking myself to many different churches. The elders would not put me in Bible study with the children, would be in the main chapel with the adults. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. Say, "Free mugs, yay." I'll have everybody wanting to visit me and go to church now. Every Sunday, I'll just bring a whole new group in, and pretty soon they'll quit giving them to me. I'm serious. I think I'm not even joking. I we actually gave some away. I think at one point we had like 20, like First United Methodist Church mugs. Yeah. Mm. Linda says, for many years I tried different religions or churches and religions. Nothing fit. All religions have the same basic tenets. So I pretty much have a religion all my own. Absolutely. I think that's fine. Aw. Thank you to those who supported Susie through that time. And they still are. And I don't even know if they know it, but it was just somewhere that I found security and acceptance and where I could kind of ask questions or just listen and know that other people went through stuff too. Which I mean, everybody knows other people go through it, but you know what I mean? Like other stuff like what I was going through. So, ah, a quiet, peaceful dance. My son is 34 and goes to church and loves it. I'm very happy for him. I am too. And they are out there. There are those churches out there. First and foremost, they are human and beautiful souls, regardless of how we identify. That is what matters. So glad we are learning this finally. Absolutely. I could go for volumes on someone's church, but I am wanting to make sure I cross my T's and all that silly stuff. Yeah. Hey, Meso, good to see you. Gifted 5 first coffee memberships. Thank you so much. Always good to see you. You've been here a couple of days in a row. Oh. You're in Tulsa. You know, I've got several people watching all of a sudden, like, not all of a sudden, but in the last couple of months. I've probably got 4 or 5 people that watch fairly regular that are from Tulsa, so that's so cool. Yeah, awesome. We'll have to get together sometime. Ben says, "That is one thing I think we need to be much, much, much harsher with penalties when it comes to that stuff. Many would say I am extremist, but I am okay with that. Yeah, when it comes to this kind of stuff, I'm okay with it too." Every church has dirty secrets. Every time man is involved in religion, it goes to hell in a handbasket. You are right. You are right. Oh, look. I've been glitching with my Wi-Fi, so I'm catching up. I was talking about you, Christy. So, yes, I was talking about you, and I wanna get together really soon. I really do. I wanna talk to you and have you back on again, and I just like you. Being a Christian does not make me better than anyone else. It makes me a better Misha, period. Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it in a meme too, and I love it. I think it's true. I don't think I'm better than anybody in anyone. Well, okay. There might be a couple that I might feel like I might have a little up on. Not really though. Linda says you don't need a church to believe in or communicate with God or some grand building. Quiet meditation under a tree is just as good. Absolutely. And I always feel so much closer to God when I'm out in nature. I really truly do. And just like I don't know, I would walk out with the horses or with the cows or something, and I would honestly out there with the horses and cows feel more spiritual than I did sitting in a church pew. And I would often hear myself, find myself kind of singing a little hymn or something or humming it, and it was very church for me to be out there. So, Linda, my aunt and uncle have church every Sunday where we get together, swim, have food and adult drinks and worship that way. Nature is beautiful. That is wonderful. That is wonderful. I'm glad that you have that. Itchy Thetans. Hey, girl. I was listening to your live describing the clap in the grocery store and made a fool out of myself giggling. Oh, wow. Yeah. I can imagine. At least you weren't playing it out loud, right? I kept listening to make sure that my granddaughter wasn't coming in when we were doing that one. So, anyway, well, guys, that is the end of the starred comments. I want to thank you all for being here. We made it a little over an hour and a half, and I'm going to go have some dinner. I can smell my chicken cooking. So, anyway, I had started the French fries and Mark finished them. So, we're going to have fries and baked chicken. But, well, baked fries are not French. They're not fried. They're just cut like fries. But anyway, so tomorrow we're going to be back with 5 serial killers, and I don't want to hear all that post toasties and all that again. You guys are so funny. No, you can say all of it you want. I don't care. Shows you're listening and shows you're like having fun, and that's all that matters. But yeah, we're going to look into 5, not just in the US. I know that there's one in South Africa, and I know that there's one in Australia, but it is serial killers that were actually let out. They didn't escape, y'all. They were let out. They were paroled or whatever. Some even after given life sentences. So we're going to look at those, see how they turned out. And I've got, a couple of others. There's one that's a really big surprise. So kind of a bad news, good news kind of a thing. So I look forward to that. So I will see you back here, same time, same place tomorrow. And we will look into that. I love you guys. Thank you all for being here. And I will talk to you later.
Hope you enjoyed the show. So glad you were here. We meet here most days. We're but first coffee and you're welcome here. We talk about hard subjects, but we also laugh a lot. If you have a loss or win, we will cheer for you. We're but first coffee and you are safe here. So hit those like and subscribe buttons, notifications set to all. You don't want to miss a show, because this is your home to y'all. So hit those like and subscribe buttons, notifications set to all. You don't wanna miss a show, because this is your home to y'all. So hit those like and subscribe buttons, notifications set to all.